Good
That
evening,
it
everyone.
tasted good, Diane. It's
My
not
name is-
strong.
I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is John Taves, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson Booksellers is located on Treaty 1 territory. That's the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, in the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, McNally Robinson itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. I'm particularly delighted to be here this evening to celebrate Miskwagoode, the latest collection of poetry by Marie Annharte Baker, who's a poet that I hold in incredibly high regard. So it's particularly thrilling that you folks are gathered here today in person and also watching live on YouTube as we celebrate this incredible book. This evening is, of course, being co-presented by the publisher New Star Books, our line in the Sand Manitoba, the Manitoba Energy Justice Coalition, and also co-presented by our good friends at the Winnipeg International Writers Festival as part of Thin Air 2022. And we'll be hearing a little more from Chelsea from the Winnipeg Writers Festival at the end of tonight's event. This evening also features a conversation hosted by Diane Dreger. Taken from the Anishinaabe for Woman Wearing Red, Miskwagoode is an unsettling portrayal of unreconciled Indigenous experience under colonialism, past and present, marked with Annharte's characteristic sharp eye and humor. Annharte is a poet whose work just gets more and more formally inventive without ever losing its incredible emotional and just incredibly intellectual core. And it's been completely thrilling to watch basically every publication from her over the years. So I'm really looking forward to tonight's reading and to tonight's discussion. There'll be a few speakers just before we get underway. Following that, we'll move along to a conversation. There'll then be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions. That not only extends to those of you gathered here tonight, but also extends to all of you watching on YouTube. If you do have any questions for Annharte, please feel free to just write them into the chat and we will get to them as time permits. I'll be wandering around with a microphone during the Q&A, which is just to ensure that everybody who is watching online can hear your questions. That is more than enough for me right now. The only other thing I will point out is that at the close of the evening, we'll be moving Marie to a signing table just beside the cash desk, where there'll be copies of Miskwagoode and some of her other work available for purchase. So, but for right now, speaking on behalf of our line in the sand, a group of concerned citizens advocating to protect the watershed of Eastern Manitoba, please join me in welcoming one of its founders, Janine Gibson.
Thank you so much, John. Yes, it's great to be here this evening. Marie has long been a sister friend of mine, going back to the early 80s. We understand what and have lived what mothermiss is. Her humor has taught me so much, and her analysis helping me to think more critically while at the same time laughing at the absurdity of life. So I was very pleased to want to draw the connections between working for environmental justice in Manitoba, making sure that we don't let any sand companies destroy our water aquifers in the southeast. And so our line in the sand is very happy to sponsor this interview and discussion with Marie about what is essentially a social justice issue. And whether the attack is on women physically or the female energy of the mother, our mother, the earth, these are interconnected issues that Marie has brought a lot of inspiration and joy to my life by focusing her energy into her art. And so to help share some of that this evening, I'm very pleased that her confident, longtime friend and writing companion, Diane Dreger, could be with us this evening. They first worked together on a published, or not first worked together, they last worked together on a published anthology called Still Living the Edges that came out in 2021, but were for decades ago in a writing group together, decades of friendship, and right now, Diane is teaching disability studies as Marie is writing her next book on disability issues, women with disabilities. Diane also is a published poet with her poetry Read with Living out in 2016. Please join me in welcoming Diane Dreger, interviewing Marie.
Thanks everybody for being here.
I'm so pleased to be here and introduce Annharte. Pardon me?
Please speak up.
Oh, okay, I'll speak up.
Also, Diane, I forgot about the song. Can I ask you to have
sure.
that for a second?
We have a song
Yes.
from a drummer.
Yes,
that
Iris,
Marie
please
has
come
asked
and
to join
sing.
us. Sorry.
Yahweh,
Thank you so much, Iris. Marie Annharte Baker. Annharte is Anishinaabe, Little Saskatchewan First Nation, Manitoba. She is the author of 4 previous books of poetry: Being on the Moon, Columbus Coyote Cafe, Exercises in Lip Pointing, and Jejina Arai. Her book of essays, AKA, was published in 2012 by Capilano University Editions. She lives in Gibsonville, Manitoba. And I'm so pleased, Marie, to introduce you for your fabulous new book.
Thank you, Diane. I know I have to use the town Gibsonville because that's where I get my mail, but I actually live on the Little Saskatchewan First Nations. And that is really close to Gibsonville. I ended up moving there about 3 years ago, so I kind of laugh about me not necessarily being a writer in residence, so to speak, on res, but I think of myself as just res granny now. So I would like to read a few of the poems that I wrote. Again, everybody wants to know, what does Miskwagoode mean? And it means she is wearing red. And this became an important color of dress in the last few years to honor the murdered missing women. And I think what I was so proud of was to have my son and my grandchildren involved in this book. So their comments are at the beginning. And we'll speak more about the loss of my mother when I speak with Diane later. So I think I would like to start with this one, which is more or less about the first part of the book, where I felt that it was really dangerous for Indigenous women to walk anywhere. And this, of course, I was thinking a lot of Winnipeg, but as you all know, Vancouver had a history of quite a number of Indigenous women that went missing. Walk a mile in her high heels. Opportunity to decode exotic message display revealed in designated special elder gathering. Granny circles may offer great straightforward advice or personal insight shared by those present. Make sense of collective past, plus extravagant promise, self-praise as usual. Granny speaks only of her own past. Government designated funding makes worthy women excellent role models to emulate a shared vision of plenty. Words clue in the crowd about every step of arduous path, yet diversion happens in a blink of an eye as heads turn towards one granny who alone shows off red suede stiletto heels. Not for the purpose to make her ass stick out far enough, catch attention whenever she wobbles by horny old guys. No, these feet adorn sans moccasin. Shout, take a gander inside self, rediscover memory, shoe shopping spree, finds. Who doesn't recall Fashion Max celebrated like Snag Pride? History no longer low budget bargain shoe, but retro Ritz. Bowl of cherries, full circle passes around. Encourage each woman to chomp on this fruit, shaped like her heart. Yet anticipation, future windfall, her prosperity awaits. Humble high heel could prophesize upward class mobility. It's based on a real event. I would also now like to mention this poem, which comes near the end of the book, which has more of a sort of outlook, because I wanted to end the book this way. And the way to end it for me is with our stories, because they're with us all the time. And in this particular story that this is based on, it's called the Rolling Head story. A lot of people in the north told the story, but also in our area, we're more in the middle of Manitoba. So I will read it, and then if there's anything else I need to say, I will. Rolls with the time. She becomes dangerous each time it happens. She loses her head, takes back power, balance. That is how she rolls past all that is thrown at her by precious children, when they try to escape new wisdom by running away, believing only. How Medese, she became Ouija, had to have her head removed by an axe. So with only her head, grown much bigger, quite scary, until she cried in pursuit to listen to her. Now they will get free to love the mother she is always to be. The only special lessons I would like to say is this story is a bit gory in that this woman is accused, would you believe, by her husband of having an affair with a snake. And it happens like, I guess, outside her house there, and he sees her, so he decides to go and he kills the snake, but he also chops his wife's head off. But some strange thing happens. Her head gets really, really big and starts rolling around and chases after the children. Like they don't recognize it's her mother. it's their mother, and so that's the part of her being a rolling head. But I, again, looked at the part where the children will be free to love the mother she always, is to be. So this is for Justin. He came this evening, and I appreciate that. Well, another request I got, I guess I don't need this to happen to me too much anymore because my hair is so short. I used to, go and get these haircuts and whatever, not like them too much. So I have this one I call Bad Hair Tomahawk Day. Repeat if necessary, honest reconciliation attempt, ritual encounter, smacks of intensities, devolves into routine, unfortunate escape paid, survived centuries, cautious warning, intensive, in for a trim, just a little around the temple area, press to alter, over decision, try sassy style, upgrade image, hopes, dreams, enjoy the buzz machine makes tickle on neck. Later, stare in mirror, holy scalping job. Worst possible do, this will draw attention. Was it intended mohawk? Though not tribal tribute, just damn lousy haircut. Presumed just payback, unjustly deserved, was just reconciliation afterthought. Surefire remedy, Coke stubble, gel won't help, increase volume. Grow out faster, so massage roots, elongate hair shaft, puff out tendrils. Not happy, dismal hairstyle improvement, discuss with stylists, seeming atrocity. Appreciate candor, bargain offer to fix a mess. Would be at no additional cost, not so friendly. Calm down as a salt. Cut is too short, can't stand it, or comb it out. Hair hacked off, strewn all over floor. Never mind alternative scalp treatment. Co-op appears thicker and healthier. May endure less breakage and bald spots. Average person's hair grows 1.5 inches per month. Give stylist a heads up. Best stick to basic reaction. Show imaginary lift of invisible hair in hand. Then the deft cutting swipe swoop. Primitive nerve triggers tease gesture. Amical to mimic swing of tomahawk. Chopper, dominate tool, weapon fetish. Not used frequently for grooming. Would scare if anyone would stare rude, disembodied, disbelieve. It happens in this day and age. Mouth muscles distend in repellent expression. Never know what to expect at salon. Afterward, remain in tranced out stoic state. No optional, more blunt cut above ears. What if this adventure is another sacrifice, not a cure for internalized racism? And I was so happy during, these last 2 years that it was at the University of Winnipeg on Valentine's Day that women would gather and there would be a march. So I decided to commemorate that in this writing, what I call boast unanimity. Take to the streets, talk, swirl, spin words, and cite rabble-rouse. Unwritten life manifesto, reimage nation, step out more self-contained. Wear a shawl over winter parka. Talk, swirl, spin, inward yet, outward, confident, conscious, possible, defiant words declare. Rebel, revolt, resolve, recollect, walk straight into dystopian. March out, more self-contained, wear a ribbon skirt to match others, express compassionate solidarity, red or purple chosen colors of purpose. Many red skeletons bump along back streets, make multiple paths toward crowd holding candlelights and collective gesture to mourn sisters fallen, but not forgotten on this eve. Foot after foot motion, fumble, feel around, awkward and shuffle, step sound, momentum, form, unspoken, unwritten life manifesto, zigzag animation, and ultimate showdown. Proceed, single file to women march. Minus below breeze rips through crowd, red skeletal remains scramble to get closer, spirits and deference keep outside inner huddle. Join hands, thick mitts, shield finger bones clutch, phantom figures and toes stick in crunch together, as if it is all pavement road to navigate from ancestor lodge, while inside they did rest, formal, introduced, say Tansi, Anin, Boujou, sisters, welcome back. We have work to do. Maybe one grisly joke. Murder, she did not write. Only Agatha Christie solved murder mysteries on telly every week. Support this exceptional gesture of defiance. Police now encircle where was presence before criminal arrest supposed to take place. Vital contact before bureaucratic damage done. Now it is mere entrapment to have security negotiations about safety. Must serve and protect. Taste, strange metaphor on tongue. About to say Valentine's Day, so bony red is subtle choice. Valentine's Day, winter evening, time being always time immemorial. Find comforting grip for bony toes, dig and crunch together, cannot avoid bump in turning, step over pothole. As if it is all talk, not walk, to negotiate, reimage nation, copy that. How many lives taken? Speckled stones remain along pathways. Find one, it is divine to remember. Well, I guess that is really an honor of all the women who do come out and support marches and activities to remember all the danger there is to women in society. But I found it hardest in the book sometimes to detail, let's call it a dead body. Hard to imagine because I never did see, the corpse of my mother or her grave or anything like that. So I have tried in this one to get a little bit of that feeling of what it's like to witness something like that. Suppose somebody, for a minute, a body, for whatever reason, wasn't discovered properly processed within 12 hours, 18 is time limit, not usable once blood flow stops, decomposition starts, depending on conditions, can start almost immediately. Bacterium didn't come as soon as came from body after death. Starts decomposing tissue and bone ground up to make bone skewers and anchors, and paste bacteria get ground up, divide when placed in warm body. It grew and spread by way of infection. Possible to dismiss this theory, shadow, whisper, seduction, sinister story, unspeakable. Twisted, smell the aroma, almost too late to learn lesson, opening big, no longer hear music, can walk anywhere, do anything, hiding face from view, a mistake, no better, trepidation element of surprise, time to react in rage, give chase, caught up in power. Best life was excitement, disappearance, died down. Never given up looking for body, carefully altered substitute, found another secluded spot, plaid blanket brought out, picnic time, less fumbling, undressing, groaning name, careful to use right one, not inadvertently say another name which sprang to mind. Just turn around, come back, sentimental, value, certain adjustment period, much to learn, get on with life. Better off not knowing, just another case of a mysterious disappearance. Eventually forgotten, if looking too much like former self, wouldn't be able to go any place talking like someone whose brain is fried, not from drugs, going through breakdown or rough time. Running away is not the way. Let's keep on eternal life without nightmare, getting away from public scrutiny. Forget trying to ditch, continue to complain, only falling silent. Taken a wrong turn of credibility. Just go home now. Radiate smile, makes sense. Didn't give a choice, won't be much of a search, requires a blood sacrifice, eventually assumed dead. Almost doubtable skin glow, luminescent, overwhelmed with pure sensation. Not to cry out, hope for way to escape, mutual pleasure, gouging in reality. No one picks up hitchhikers anymore. Cyber ideal turned out to falsify, guarantee inner euphony. Won't have a chance to show stuff seductive. Locality out in the middle of nowhere, too nondescript. Get off detour, creating an aura, look so shabby. Denim, hated leaving safe place, outdated, overt, moonlight shimmer, long, spiky shine, obvious discomfort. What are the odds? Brown wrapping paper shipped, too sudden, trembled. Look at it again. Thank you. I appreciate your kind attention, and Diane and I are going to discuss a little bit more in detail so that there'll be more in what is meant in an entire book about losing my mother.
Thanks, Marie, for the lovely reading. We had talked about the title of your book, right? Which means Women Wearing a Red Dress. And I'm wondering how that reflects the whole book. to you? And I see you're wearing your red dress tonight too.
Well, women began to show their compassion and honoring for the women who had been murdered and disappeared. So for me, when I wear like a red dress, and of course others, I think we are coming together in community. Again, we are making conscious the danger that our women are in society, even though it seems, oh yeah, we can walk around in high heels anywhere, whatever. But I think that this visual symbol of the red dress is one way the women, Indigenous women have shown, their honoring of other women. There were demonstrations or exhibits of, I remember, red dresses on trees, and someone even have a red dress or a picture of one in their home.
Right, right. I noticed that now in your reading, you have a lot of wordplay, and in your work over the years, you have done that. And in this one, you talk about mothermiss and motherless. You want to talk a little more about that?
Yes, I had written a bit in the front of the book as an intro, because it seemed myself that I had not really grieved for my mother. I had, well, as a child when I lost her about 9 years old, I guess I kind of thought she was coming back. And the years went on, and again, I did not know, or people did not say anything. And again, this turns out people do not know. And I guess nothing more is really said about the disappearance of my mother. So I feel that when I am saying motherless, I'm talking about the time I lived without feeling the presence of a mother, and I was raised by my dad, who was a single parent. And then when I think of the other word or expression, motherless, again, that's when I feel more the deeper part of having lost my mother. And the fact that, there had never been a formal inquiry, and as I have here, the motherless aspect took over, though I think of it as a time when I do not think that much about my mother. I did miss her, but had not cried about her leaving. It had been a shock that numbed out most of my feelings. So with using the two different words, I guess I'm speaking about the ambiguity that I experienced about losing my mother.
Yes. Now, recently you moved to the res where your mother was from. And I'm wondering, how does this book relate to that move, to you living on her res?
Well, I feel that when I returned to the res, or I call it return, I'd only been there as a child when my mother took me, I always had this feeling that I was taking her spirit back with me. And that was because, well, for some of the relatives, I was a visual reminder of my mother. So they had to think about her. And they, of course, became, to me, more family And again, sort of more of a mother presence for me. So I think that's what it meant for me to live there and to, you know, be among my relatives.
Right. So how is this book part of your healing, or is it? Is it part of your healing process?
Well, the book has been that because I had such a hard time, well, both writing and editing it. I seem to experience this, I guess I'd call it side effect of, it's called like when your emotions freeze. I would have that happen, and it's more than writer's block. It has to do when you have a deep, a deep wound, and it's difficult to speak or write about it. So I think the fact that I could even finish the book and that was part of this healing process for me. And the fact like tonight I'm here actually speaking about having lost my mother.
Yes, yes. So was your writing process different for this book than your others? That's kind of what I'm reading. This was a whole different writing process.
Well, yes, it definitely is more intense in terms of my feelings and my having to recognize them and allow myself to grieve for my mother, which I hadn't done before because it was just like, she's gone, and that's kind of how it was left for me most of my life. Although I gotta say, my father did very well as a parent for me. So in that way, my mother chose a very good partner because he was a very caring father for me.
Yes. Now, over dinner, we were talking a bit about how this is related to disability as well for you. And as you know, you wrote an essay for the book, Still Living the Edges, which is my edited book, A Disabled Women's Reader. And I'm just wondering if you had some comments on that.
Well, I think I remember mentioning this loss of my mother as part of the disability that I eventually ended up knowing more about. I mean, people can say things, oh yeah, post-traumatic stress, or they might even say, you know, you've had a sad childhood or something to that effect. But I really feel when we're looking at disability, especially as an issue for Indigenous women, there is so much that is not really, I would say, faced up to by whatever you want to say, health officials, by the whole community. There are many women that would have issues of what somebody would say is, oh, mental health. But sometimes this all got disguised in a way or covered up by, well, everybody knows, drinking and drugging. And then, of course, there were a lot of women whose children were taken from their parents, not just by the residential school, but later with the child welfare agencies. So our families really suffered a lot. So I would say disability is issue in the Indigenous community is not very well addressed, and we do not exactly have the health coverage we should have, given we have something called like the medicine chest. aspect to our treaties. For me, then, saying that that I have a disability is, I guess, one or another way of reaching out to others, and especially, people who, like me, didn't really know they had a disability.
Yes, yes, the incidence of disability amongst Indigenous peoples is much higher than for other Canadians. In the 2017 census, almost 30% of Indigenous people self-identify as having a disability, physical, mental, emotional, sensory. And yeah, as you were saying, it has a lot to do with what's happened historically, right?
Well, like even September 30th, which many people participated in the different activities, and I went to several, so I was really pleased to see there was an activity or ceremony that brought together, both Indigenous people and other Canadians. And I had gone to one, it was actually on Thursday, and it was just at a thrift store. And they brought in singers, and we had a wonderful meal together. And I don't know, I really like that community aspect of the way, this idea of every child matters is respected and honored.
Yes, yes. Now, in your book, one of the first things I noticed was that, your two granddaughters are involved in writing and artwork for your book, and also your son. And I'm wondering how this reflects, does this reflect your family coming together over this issue?
Yeah.
And how does that help your family moving forward? Or how does it?
Well,
coming together.
obviously for me, my grandchildren did not know my mother, so they did not know of their great grandmother, and my son did not know of his grandmother. So it did seem appropriate to involve them. Like this particular portrait was drawn by my older granddaughter, Madeline, and this is a picture of my younger granddaughter, whose name is Sophia, which was the name of my mother. And in the book, they write, in a way, like you said, of, connecting with their great grandmother or grandmother. So, like for instance, my son says, or writes here, I only picture her as a typical old Indian woman making bannock and tea for me. We never got that time together. What would she want from me? It seems whenever I thought of my ancestors, I tried to imagine them giving me good words, giving me good thoughts, inspiring me to live a good Indian life. It seems now I have been able to witness a lot. I have seen through their eyes. Some of the old ways I wanted to live have been through their sharing. So I don't know, as a mother, that really makes me, feel so proud of my son and his children, my grandchildren, that by sharing in this, creation of this book, we were able to put a kind of presence behind, the idea that my mother was completely unknown to them. So I don't know, I just feel that that was not exactly an intended outcome, but it came to me as something, that was really quite a gift. really quite a gift that they could be included in what otherwise would be a tragic memory. For only myself.
Yes. Thanks so much, Marie. I think that's our time for conversation. We could talk a lot more. I'd like to invite anybody in the audience here or online to ask or comment, ask some questions or comment on what Annharte has presented today. And I think, John, you have a microphone there, right? You can
Yes, indeed.
take around.
Justin.
Marie, thank you. I love hearing you read your work. To hear you read it takes the words off the page and makes them so alive and strong. I'm curious, you mentioned briefly your father and that he was a good parent for you. Could you tell us any more about your father?
Could I do what?
Tell us more about your father.
Oh, right, my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of unusual, but what I linked with him is that he lost his mother at about the same age. She had died of tuberculosis. And while, of course, to some extent, he'd been caring for her. And again, he had, tried to take care of my mother, and then, of course, me. So that's the kind of dad I had. He was, I don't know, one of my first books I wrote, I did put it down that my father was my mother. Because of, all the things that he did. And well, I was lucky he had a job, I could go to school. I was able to do that, but there was a time when I had to beg my dad not to give me up to child welfare. I remember crying, and he had a soft heart, so there's no way he was gonna let me go after that. So I don't know, I'm always really appreciative that he took this role on it to be a single parent, because it wasn't that common in those days for men to, take on the parenting of their children like that.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that medicine chest thing that you were speaking of. I think it was in the Treaty Act.
Yes, you were asking about, what Indigenous people are, their rights, especially with the signing of the treaties, that we were entitled to, of course, better medical care than we get. I mean, we do have some, of course, expenses covered, but there is a lot of preventive health measures that like we don't have. Actually, one of them I would think should have been covered to some extent by what we look at as the medicine chest. Like as a senior, I would really like us to have on the res something like a senior drop-in center where we could go hang out, be with each other, and also with the other generations there. Some of the elders could be speaking with the younger kids and helping them regain their language or maintain their language. So even though that is, some of that should have been covered by other people, like I know myself, I was hoping, I hope the Pope says something about helping us, with our language and that, but I don't know, they just do some formal stuff. Like, I think he was at one time posing around with feather bonnet on himself, and I thought, oh, please, let's get down to hard cash here. But apparently they got off the hook for that, so it's too bad that they are not making adequate compensation for the running out of those residential schools, which what I was reading yesterday on the Facebook, I mean, some people just out call it murder of children.
Yes.
Genocide and murder of children. But again, sometimes those words are not spoken because everybody wants to say it's all in the past and that, but we have a few years to go before we can really, well, I guess the idealistic word is heal, but actually make the appropriate compensation to families that have lost children. I mean, there are families that don't even know the names of the ones that, whose bodies were found in those graves they found, Just terrible. It's still a mess.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Okay, and we do have time for this one question.
Hi, my dear friend. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good. I've always thought of you as a very wise and cheeky person. I'm glad that someone called you cheeky on the backside of the book. And there's a poem in here, and you're using the word miscegenation again. And I just want to acknowledge that you've challenged me for years to really learn and have more language to talk about things. And you're the one who taught me that word years ago, and I had to look it up. And I appreciate the way that your writing has always challenged me personally. I thank you for that. I'm really curious because I see that there's a birthmark on the photo, on the drawing on the, and you have a birthmark right there. Can you hear me?
Oops, I'm not quite sure.
I'm noticing there's a birthmark on the image of your granddaughter,
yes.
and you also have a birthmark on your chin.
I do. Oh, I didn't notice.
You do, right
you're
there. You do. And I'm curious, when you're back at home on res and you're encountering people who knew your mother, I look very much like my mother, so I have to live vicariously through her, and I don't always appreciate that, but as she's getting older, I get to enjoy that a bit. But I'm wondering how being home and feeling like people physically encounter you and connect to remember your mom, if you can say more about that.
Oh, I hate to say what really happens to.
It must be difficult, but
I will say it. One of the names they have given me is Monyakwe, means white woman. And the reason they're saying that is because I do not speak my language fluently. And that's another thing I lost with my mother is I'm positive I would have been a better language speaker if I had her, around most of my life. I think the memory of her is something that the people have to pretty much learn about, from what I understand. Like somebody has to sort of say, oh, she is, related to, and this was, so-and-so kind of thing. But as it turns out, for many of my relatives, I'm more or less an auntie. So I think that is pretty complimentary for me to be included that way, even though it's somewhat like when you say a relative, say, oh, a cousin or something, but for them to call me auntie and for me to call them nephews and nieces, I find that, wonderful. And again, I think about my mother when, I'm interacting with them like that. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much, Marie, and thank you, Diane. If you both have any closing comments you might like to make, please feel free to do so, and then we'll invite up Chelsea from the Writers Festival to say a few words.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm so honored to be here with you, Marie, launching your book, and to have you put confidence in me to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Diane, and to Janine and Justin for coming, and I don't know, I guess Iris for singing, such a beautiful song. Thank you so much.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chelsea Young, and I am the Executive Assistant for the Writers Festival. I just want to give a big thank you to John here this evening, to McNally Robinson, to Janine with Our Line and the Sand Manitoba, for Iris for sharing her beautiful song with us this evening, Diane for speaking with us here this evening, and the biggest thank you to Marie for writing and just letting us experience your words and your feelings and your thoughts all on this page. And it's an honor to have you here with us this evening. Of course, this is still the festival, so I still have to plug. We're still going. We're actually going until October the 18th. There's some more coming up in the store. I believe this coming Tuesday, October 4th, is Ben McIntyre. The 6th is Anne Mann. And then we have an in-person writing workshop this coming next Sunday on Thanksgiving at Art Space with Tanis McDonald. Also, and this is all off the top of my head. Thanks. And also you can just visit our website, thinairfestival.ca, and there is just a treasure trove of beautiful videos that authors from all across Canada and abroad have created for us. So if you haven't checked that out yet, please go there. Once again, thank you so much for being here this evening. Thank you again, Marie, and thank you, and we'll see you again.